Hey YouTube, so today we're going to talk about some revolvers. Hey YouTube, so today we're going to talk about 4 wicked wheel guns, ranging in price from around $400 to around $800, and the one that you don't see here is the model 686 Plus by Smith and Wesson. That would be here. Model 66 by Taurus, model 608 by Taurus, and the GP100 Wiley Clap by Ruger. I'm not going to go heavy into all the details on them, I'm just going to give you basics and my impressions on them and the impressions of 3 other guys that shot them. Now, the guns we'll be looking at today, one is the Taurus model 608. It's a 8-shot 357 Magnum 4-inch barrel. The largest of the group, not the largest barrel, but the biggest, heaviest frame. This is built, I believe, on a 44 Magnum chassis, and that's why you're able to get 8 shots of 357 Magnum into this gun. It's also ported. None of the other ones were ported. So between the weight and the porting, this gun is much easier to fire with full load 357 Magnums. Now, I've got a video where it shows my son firing all 3, and for some reason he seems to control the Ruger better, and it may be the grips. But when it comes down to choosing which one my son likes the best, he chose the model 66. Again, I might believe in my mind that that's the grip and he likes the way that feels. But that was his choice of which of these 3 he liked the best. On the 686, unfortunately, that one was hampered a little bit because my friend was running a really small hoe grip on it where I could only get a few fingers on the grip, and when I was firing it, my thumb was smacking into the release for the cylinder. So even though it had a 6-inch barrel, which should help with recoil, the grip hampered my ability to control the gun very well. The model 66 by Taurus, which is a 7-shot 357 Magnum, somewhat unfair as far as trigger goes because this one has had a little bit of work and it has wolf springs in it, but this one is by far the easiest to pull the trigger, and it has had no light strikes or any problems and such. But the single action or double action mode, the trigger is far easier to pull than the other 2, but it's definitely better than the Ruger, and it's very close to the 608, which the 608 has had no work done on it. The grips I had on these, I don't like the stock Taurus grips where they split down the center, and I really don't care for the way they feel. So this is a hoe grip, quite nice, gives you a much better purchase on the gun. Now, if you're one of those people where your fingers are a little bit larger or smaller than an average person, mine are average, maybe slightly bigger, and it fits this grip really well. Other people don't like the finger grooves. In my case, I like it a lot. The Wiley Clap Edition GP100, I believe this one is a 3-inch barrel. The Ruger out of the box has by far the best sights and the best grip. Now, this is obviously the Wiley Clap Edition, so you do get the fiber optic front sight and you do get the nicer grips. So you're paying for it too. Obviously, this is, like I said, around $700. Trigger wise, in single action mode, it's very, very close to the other 2 guns, but it is slightly heavier. In double action mode, it is definitely quite a bit heavier. What the actual numbers are, I don't know. I may annotate those in. But the Wiley Clap GP100 is definitely, I would say, at least ½ pound to a pound heavier in the initial trigger pull. It's very smooth, but I was seeing that in double action I was definitely pulling it off. Now, these guns definitely range in value or price that you're going to pay for them. Starting down around $400 for this Taurus model 66, move up to around $500 for the model 608, somewhere in the area of $700 for this GP100 Wiley Clap Edition, and also somewhere in the $700 to $800 range for the Model 686 Plus by Smith and Wesson. Now, on the day that these guns were all compared to one another, they all performed flawlessly. But in the past, the GP100, the first day we took this out to the range and we were firing away, the rear sight fell off. Not a real big deal, but if you don't have your rear sight, it's a little bit harder to hit the target. We had screwed that back together and it works fine now. The Taurus Model 66, this gun wouldn't release the cylinder when I first got it. You had to push this really, really hard. I ended up sending it to my friend who went ahead and took it apart. He actually said this was way too much play or something, and he shimmed it. And he also changed out the springs and put in some wolf springs and basically did a slight, very slight fluff and buff, so to speak. So this trigger is really, really nice now. Secondly, the next time that I took it to the range, same type of thing was happening again. It wouldn't, you'd push really hard. This time the button was actually moving, but you had to really, really push hard on the cylinder to get it out. And what was happening is there was a really bad burr here and up in this area. So I had to go in and file those out, and now it actually works fine. But two revolvers, both of them had varying issues with them. Now the Taurus Model 608, you may have seen my original video on this where the transfer bar broke after about 50 rounds through it. Took them about 5 weeks, they sent it back in. So far it's been perfect. About 250 rounds through it now and no other failures, and it performed perfectly on the day that we compared these three guns. Now, just in comparison, the Model 686, the day that we were comparing it, we only compared these two guns, we didn't have the Ruger there. But towards the end of the day, we had some, what we thought were hard primers or something, and the gun was malfunctioning, it wasn't firing. And I'll try and roll in some of the footage of that.
Good. Do you have any duds with this?
Nope.
Huh.
But turns out his main spring had failed. Now he said he had probably about 1,000 dry fires. He just sits there working the trigger because he's an incredible shot and he really knows when the trigger's going to break on his gun. But just goes to show you, all those people that say the revolvers are flawless and they're much more reliable than semi-automatics, they do have their problems. All four guns that I've demonstrated here all had their individual problems. So the sights on the 608, the rear notch is painted white, almost like a Glock, and then the front sight is orange, and that is, I believe, a little insert. So they're very easy to pick up, and they are adjustable for windage and elevation, versus the Model 66 was all black before. That U-notch in the back does not have any white paint on it, and that front was all black. But I painted it orange so you could pick up that front sight much quicker. And the Ruger Wiley Clap has a fiber optic green front sight and just a black notch in the back, which is adjustable for windage but not elevation. Now as far as finishes go, I don't really care for the brushed stainless steel look. Each of the guns that I've dealt with that specific style of finish are very difficult to clean in my mind. I'd rather have a blued gun or a polished stainless steel. Now, of which gun would I suggest that you buy as far as revolvers go? I would suggest you go to a range and rent them, because each one of these guns, now I had 4 guns, 4 different people firing them, and 4 different choices on which gun they thought was the best. My father, who owns the Wiley Clap, I asked him which gun do you like the best? The Wiley Clap. Now I asked him which gun is the easiest to shoot. He said the 608. Obviously, like I said, it's heavier and it's ported, so it was much easier to stay on target. And the trigger is a little bit lighter than the Ruger. My son chose the Model 66. Now, my son chose this one as his favorite, and I believe it's because the trigger is a little bit lighter, a little bit smoother. Again, this one's had a little bit of action work done on it, and I believe because of the nicer grip, he was able to hold on to it a little bit better. But I think the primary thing is the trigger. The 686 was chosen by its owner. Again, it's probably because he's mostly familiar with that gun. He's done a little bit of tuning on it and is much smoother. And he also believes it's a much higher quality than the Taurus's. And I wouldn't disagree with that. But in my mind, as far as 357 Magnums go, I like the 608. Now, I was a big fan of the 686 Plus with the 7 rounds, but this gun, with this porting and its weight, is just really easy to keep on target. So there you have it. It's a quick view of 4 different revolvers ranging in value from around $400 to around the $800 mark. Now, I suggest you go and try as many of them as you can before you decide on what you want to buy.
This thing's a beast.